If you've been watching this channel for a while, then you know I do a top 10 list of the best comics of the year. And this year of 2024 is no exception. It may not seem like it because time flies, but this is my 10th annual report. That's quite an achievement for my channel, and it shows its consistency. Marvel had an outstanding year, dominating with 5 entries in my top 10. And the biggest overarching storyline in Marvel was the fall of Krakoa, a sentient living island that became a safe space and homeland for the mutant population. And several books on this list will be in response to what happened after Krakoa's fall. My eligibility requirements are in the description, so here's my top 10 list. If you add in the honorable mentions, it's the top 20. And oh yeah, warning for spoilers. Number 10 is Doom, number 1 from Marvel Comics. This was my pick of the week for May the 15th, 2024. It's an oversized one-shot comic of tremendous importance. Dr. Doom, with Valeria Richards at his side, goes on the quest to harness more power than any human has ever wielded to stop Galactus from bringing about the death of the universe. The creative team on this has major star power. You have Jonathan Hickman writing the story and Sanford Green doing the artwork. And once again, this is a one-shot, so you have a self-contained story. Remember all those Fox Fantastic Four movies that made a mockery out of Dr. Doom? Well, Marvel has the rights back to the Fantastic Four universe now, so rehabbing Von Doom's image is of utmost importance right now. Valeria Richards is the daughter of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, the younger sister of Franklin Richards, and for some reason, Von Doom is her godfather. She's also going by the code names Marvel Girl and Brainstorm. I'm not going to explain all that backstory right now, it's too complicated, but for right now, make sure you get Doom number 1. Number 9 is Resurgence of the Valiant Universe, number 1 from Valiant Comics, released on September 18th, 2024. Valiant is an indie superhero universe that includes Exo Man of War, Bloodshot, and Shadow Man. We're attempting to start a live-action connected universe in association with Sony, with Bloodshot being the first movie. As she came out in February 2020 starring Vin Diesel, but coronavirus, it never had a chance. Yeah. There was a lot of complicated chaos involving the company and its direction, but now it's owned by Alien Books, and this is their attempt to reboot this universe. Valiant isn't a new universe. It was first launched in 1990 with Jim Shooter, the former editor-in-chief over at Marvel, when he missed out on trying to buy Marvel. They had success with a license of some old gold key characters such as Solar Man the Atom and Magnus Robot Fighter before creating their own characters, such as Bloodshot, which I mentioned before. He's a man meets machine hybrid, sort of like Deathlock, but with a Wolverine Weapon X backstory. Exo is basically a barbarian out of time, is abducted by aliens but leads a Spartacus revolt against them, stealing their most valuable weapon, their sentient exo armor which he wears. The Valiant universe has always been critically acclaimed for their artwork and their storytelling. They have key books that were published in the early 1990s that have minuscule print runs, such as Harbinger number 1, which still fetch a pretty penny. The 1996 comic book crash hurt the company, but it rebounded in 2012 and now again in 2024. In this comeback, the heroes have to unite to fight against a villain called Dr. Silk. I highly recommend this as a good starting point. Most people don't realize it, but Valiant has the 3rd largest superhero connected universe, only behind DC and Marvel. So I recommend you jump in head first with this. Number 8 is Sentinels, number 1 from Marvel Comics. This was my pick of the week for October 9th, 2024. When you think of Sentinel, you think of these mutant hunting AIs, don't you? They were an integral part of X-Men 92, and they got used very well in Days of Future Past and live action as well. In this continuity, the mission's a little different. We're talking post-fall of Krakoa. These Sentinels are human cyborgs augmented with advanced nanotechnology with the mission to detain dangerous mutants and maintain control over a dystopian system. And Xavier's former school has become the mutant prison. We get introduced to 5 new characters, which are the new Sentinels: Lockstep, Drumfire, Shellback, Sawtooth, and Voivod. And their first mission isn't really that hard. They just have to bring in Omega Red, that's all. And spoilers, one of the members of the team dies in the first issue. Well, we'll see if they stay dead, because you know in comics it's nerd. No one ever really dies. So in a nutshell, it's not your typical Sentinel mission, which is to indiscriminately kill, neutralize, terminate mutants with extreme prejudice. It's only the worst of the worst being rounded up, like Omega Red, and I'm sure they'll be looking for Sabretooth later. I really enjoyed the concept and the execution of this, and I will be following this title. I guess it's the Mutant Suicide Squad, you could call it that. Number 7 is Rifters, number 1 from Image Comics, released on June 12, 2024. I took a chance on this because I love the premise, and man, I love this. Think of it as Time Cop meets Law and Order, meets Rick and Morty. And it's told in a dark comedy, action, satire spoof about a team of 2 vice time cops who are busting people doing time travel crimes. You get some of that buddy cop action comedy that you might see in Bad Boys, and some of the sci-fi ridiculousness you might see in, say, Demolition Man or The Fifth Element. One of their missions was to shut down some influencers from live streaming illegal trans-temporal trips to 1920 Chicago to steal bootleg hooch. I've had this much fun reading a buddy cop series in comics since Resurgence, The Fix from 2016, also from Image Comics. It's written by Joe Thorman and Brian Paulson, and the art is by Chris Johnson. If you're a fan of buddy cop action comedy meets sci-fi, then this is for you. I could see this as a Adult Swim type of animated series. Number 6, Robot Plus Girl, number 1 from King Spot. This is my pick of the week for April 24th, 2024. This is an all-ages, near-future sci-fi story involving the AI robot. Unlike the dark dystopian AI stories like The Matrix and The Terminator, the fate of the world isn't at stake. So it's not world level, it's not even street level, it's more personal. About a human girl named Mari and a robot that she develops a friendship with. When we're introduced to the robot, we found out that his software is now obsolete. Feeling that it's the end of his life cycle and usefulness, he decides to turn himself in for scrap parts, but he's rescued by the girl and her name is Mari. She takes him home and reboots him, and then their friendship starts from there. We find out that she's barely eking out a living by competitive gaming online. The robot naively intervenes and gets her in trouble. Everything I describe happens in the first 4 issues, and we have to see if she's going to get out of it. I found this book not only to be entertaining, but very charming. This franchise seems to be touching upon a theme that our technology is advancing, but our kindness towards other humans is decreasing. The artist and writer on this is Mike White. I actually reached out to Mike and he responded kindly. He sent me a copy signed of the first 4 issues and this original art piece drawing of Marcy and her robot. Mike, if you're listening, you did a fantastic job on this, and the architecture in the background looks outstanding as well. I appreciate the attention to detail. Standing ovation. Number 5 is Ultimate X-Men number 1 from Marvel Comics. This was released on March 6, 2024. It looks and feels nothing like your traditional X-Men comics of the past. Think of it as Mutants Go Manga. You know, that Japanese style of comics that's outselling North American comics right now? This project is the baby of Peach Momoko, who is a Japanese artist. She is both writing it and drawing it. On top of that, she redesigned all the characters as well for this universe. Here's her take on Storm. Peach won an Eisner in 2021 for Best Variant Cover Artist. She's probably going to get nominated again, but this time as a writer or interior artist or a combination. And was this a hit? You better believe it was a hit. It's up to his 4th reprinting and counting. Peach has already achieved massive success in comics, and she's on her way to becoming a real legend in this game. In 2015, Image put out Monstrous, which I thought was the best comic of the 2010s. And it was a bridge between North American comics and manga, of kaiju and steampunk elements. It's written by Marjorie Liu, who's Chinese American, and drawn by Sana Takada, who is Japanese. It's up to 50 issues since I wrote this. It's won 6 Eisners and it's still going. So if Monstrous is a bridge, then Ultimate X-Men by Peach Momoko is the full mangazation of the X-Men story in its own pocket universe, and people love it. Even I underestimated just how important this was going to be. Number 4, Ultimate Black Panther number 1 from Marvel Comics. This is my pick of the week from February 7th, 2024. This is a great one, and I don't think you're ready for this rendition of Black Panther. And remember, this is an alternative universe Black Panther where he wears a cowl that's similar to Batman, which you can see in this character design sketch right here. The storyline presented here is Khonshu and Ra, the force together known as Moon Knight, is seeking to expand the brutal control of the continent of Africa, but not if Black Panther's got something to say about it. The storytelling in this is fantastic, and the artwork is phenomenal. Storm does show up, and she's on the cover of issue number 3 in that Peach Momoko design that I talked about before. Well, Marvel is leading up to Secret Wars in the live-action MCU, and we may get an incursion where the Earths collide and become one. So we may get a recast T'Challa in live action again with this design. A recast Storm for the Mutant Universe, hopefully Kiki Lane. So fans like myself, sometime in the future can get promised that Storm Black Panther wedding. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At the time I made this video, there's about 10 issues of Ultimate Black Panther out. I recommend that you get it every month that it comes out because it's a top-notch series. Number 3 is Absolute Superman number 1, released on November 6, 2024. It's written by Jason Aaron, who I think is the best writer in comic books right now. He had great runs on Thor, Doctor Strange, Star Wars, and others. He's just a fantastic science fiction writer, and his world building is amazing. On his fresh new take on Superman, we get some tweaks to his origin. And issue number 1 has 2 interlocking stories showing his life back on Krypton, in which he is shown as a child back on Krypton, so he didn't leave it as a baby. And Krypton has a very tight caste system that shows your social order on your chest. The people at the highest order had the red sun on their chest, and the lowest tier that works with their hands, the people of steel, have this S on their chest. So this is the caste that Kal-El's family is in. His father works in the mines of Krypton, and he knows that the planet is unstable. The destruction of Krypton is not shown in issue 1, and Kal-El appears to be about 10 years old or so. The destruction is probably coming in later issues, which I haven't seen yet at the time I made. The story time jumps to present-day Brazil, showing lowly workers who are also working in a mine, and Superman is embedded. He encourages them with his help to overthrow the Lazarus Corporation, which is exploiting these workers in terms of their pay and their health. Order is enforced by ruthless peacemakers, and yes, they're dressed just like the John Cena character that you know from the Suicide Squad. So a grown, capeless Superman is part of the revolt down there. The Lazarus Corporation sends in a special team to try to negate Superman's power, and this special forces team is led by Lois Lane. We get hints that Brainiac may be watching all of this from a distance, and we also learn that Ma and Pa Kent did exist in this universe, but the family farm appears to be deserted and owned by the Lazarus Corporation. So that's all the information we get for issue 1. It takes a lot of liberties and giving us a unique twist to the Superman mythos. And for me, it's really working because standard Superman just doesn't work for me anymore. This is a new fresh take on Superman and the alternative universe in which Batman doesn't have to hold up the story to make it work. I really like the art, the storytelling is fantastic, and I'm curious to see what happens next. 2 thumbs way up. Number 2 is Phoenix #1 from Marvel Comics. This was my pick of the week for July 17th, 2024. This Phoenix is your girl Jean Grey, and it's taking place after the fall of Krakoa, and she goes into deep space missions on a journey of redemption. As you know, Jean Grey is a founding member of the X-Men back in 1963. She was the only female member of the team, and she was the weakest at the time as well. Her code name was Marvel Girl with this very much outdated costume. But she was upgraded to the Phoenix in X-Men 101 with a new outfit and new name. And instead of being the weakest member, it turns out that she was the most powerful member of the team now. Put your Mary Sue jokes in this bucket right here. But the Phoenix Force turned out to be an evil force that was possessing her, and she rose to Dark Phoenix. It started to do some very evil things, and this whole story was from 101 to X-Men 137, which led to her supposed death. But there was too much of an outcry from the fans to keep her dead, so they had to do a whole bunch of jumbled continuity that makes no sense, that makes people confused to this day. You know, that whole Madeline Pryor clone thing, that this gets complicated. It seems in modern continuity she has control of the Phoenix Force now and can use it for good. So it makes sense that she's in space because the Earth is just too small for what she can accomplish. In issue #1, she gets a SOS from Nova, which brings her to the edge of a black hole with hundreds of lives in the balance. But we'll start with issue 1, keep going, because she teams up with Kosar of the Starjammers in issue #2. In issue #3, she gets into a fight with the Black Order. These are the goons of Thanos you saw in Infinity War. In issue 4, she gets into it with Gore the God Butcher from the Thor universe. Issue 5, she fights the Dark God Paracus. In issue 6, the Mad Titan, Thanos himself. So yeah, the whole series is definitely worth following. And start with issue #1. It starts off with a bang and just go from there. Thank you for watching so far. I hope you liked the selections. Before we get into my #1 selection, let's go over 10 honorable mentions, please. Blood Hunt #1 from Marvel Comics. This was my pick of the week for May 1st, 2024. This was Marvel's premiere summer crossover of the year. Geiger #1 from Image Comics. This was a big hit miniseries for Image back in 2021. This year, it was rebooted back to #1 for an ongoing series. It's a post-apocalyptic story taking place in the future Las Vegas, Nevada, after a nuclear blast. It follows the adventures of Tariq Geiger, the guy on the cover, who not only survives the blast, but gets superpowers from it. Lilith #1 from Vault Comics, a supernatural horror story about an ultra-dimensional being passing as a model on Earth, but she's secretly preying on humans. If you like mythical science fiction horror, then this 4-issue miniseries is for you. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 from IDW Publishing. This reboots the Turtles back to issue #1 with Jason Aaron writing their story. This is a celebration of the Turtles' 40th anniversary. They made their debut in comics in 1984. Storm #1 from Marvel Comics. This was the pick of the week for October 2nd, 2024. Like all the other mutant issues, this takes place after the fall of Krakoa. Aurora is tasked to help people in Oklahoma City survive the after effects of a new mutant coming online, which people think is an accident at the power plant. After containing it, Storm has to decide if she's going to tell the truth to the public, which could lead to more anti-mutant backlash. The Violator #1 from Image Comics. This was the pick of the week for September 25th, 2024. This is a miniseries coming out of the Spawn universe. The Clown, also known as the Violator, has always been a thorn in the side to Spawn, keeping a watchful eye over him, harassing him, and trolling him. We were never given a true origin of this character until now, so make sure you pick this up. Batman by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age #1 from DC Comics, the pick of the week for June 12th, 2024. This alternative universe Batman story takes place in the Victorian age of the early 1890s. In Bacall's Comics, this miniseries depicts what happens when the alien spaceship of Kal-El arrives. Definitely a very interesting take on Batman. The Power Fantasy #1 from Image Comics, released on August 7th, 2024. In this sci-fi story, there's only 6 people alive with superpowers, but their powers are like world-ending nuclear type. And the survival of the world depends on them never meeting, but of course, you know that's going to happen. It's a story similar to Watchmen that it covers a lot of ethical and moral dilemmas. This is written by Kieran Gillen, and he's just fantastic at these type of stories. If you like smart science fiction beyond superhero tropes, then this is for you. Mystique #1 from Marvel Comics, the pick of the week for October 16th, 2024. The story is based around Nick Fury trying to catch Mystique, but how can you catch her when she can be anybody when she's a shapeshifter? She calls herself a freedom fighter for the mutant cause. Other people call her a terrorist a few of the mutant calls. It's a tale of action and espionage, which the Mystique character is so good at. And Deathlock, 50th Anniversary Special Number 1, released on September 18th, 2024. Since his debut in Astonishing Tales in 1974, this character has always been underrated. He set the standard for dystopian, dark, sci-fi, man mixed with machine horror action stories that came after him. He predates the Terminator, Weapon X Wolverine, Bloodshot, Cyborg, and all these other similar characters, so give him his flowers. Alright, that's it for the honorable mentions. Thank you for hanging in there with me. And without any further ado, I present to you what I think was the #1 comic of 2024. And I don't think there should be any surprise here. It's Absolute Batman #1 from DC Comics, released October 9th, 2024. I had no idea this was going to be this good. I mean, I love the Batman character, but they've been oversaturating him for a very long time. If we're just talking about the comics, you have the ongoing Batman flagship title. You have the ongoing Detective Comics starring Batman title. There's the Batman by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age miniseries. There's the horror miniseries called Batman Full Moon. Of course, he's front and center in the Absolute Power crossover. So yeah, there's a lot of Batman, and all this could be on the shelf at the same time at your comic book store. It can be overwhelming. So I heard the advanced hype about Absolute Batman, and I'm like, well, I've seen a dark, very brutal Batman before. That was called The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. So I wasn't expecting much except more brooding for Batman. But I have to admit, I was wrong on this. This way overachieved. And that was me being a dummy on this, because Absolute Batman is written by Scott Snyder. He had a previous run on the New 52 Batman, which was phenomenal. He gave us the Court of Owls and so much more. I think he really understands the psychology of who Batman is and how to write this character. In this version of Batman, there's no Wayne family fortune. He works as a civil engineer, which does explain why he knows where all the tunnels and things are at in the city. Which also is cool is everything about his uniform. It's like every piece of his uniform can be contorted and turned into a weapon of some sort. I think the only drawback on this take on Batman is that some people don't like the logo, being that it doesn't look enough like a bat. To me, it's not a deal breaker, and I don't see what the big fuss is about. You know this is Batman. Another thing we learn about the Absolute universe is that it's powered by dark side energy. Absolute Batman is a bona fide hit. At the time I make this video, it's up to its 4th printing on the first issue. It's also the #1 individual selling comic of 2024 by far. I think it's got that potential similar to New 52 Batman by Scott Snyder in 2011. At the end of the day, characters like Batman are over 80 years old, so you want to have a fresh spin on this character without chasing the basics or the mission of who they are. So there you have it, my top 10 comics of 2024, plus some honorable mentions. And Absolute Batman is a winner. You should be reading it. What you look at right now is the scene from Black Panther Part 1 where Killmonger extracts Claw from custody, because I really love this movie. And it's sad to think about what could have been after the passing of Chadwick Boseman. But then again, I think of the quality of your life not necessarily being the length of your life. You should be seeing 2 end screen caps that show my top 10 comics of the year from 2022 and 2023 as well. If you weren't a subscriber then you can see what you missed. Let me know how you like my top 10 comics of the year report. Until next time, this is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power saying bye-bye.